I'm Donna Cruz. Welcome to CIA, Contagious Influencers of America, hosted by Keep the Faith Radio's executive producer, 9-time Emmy winner David Sams, and Victoria Robinson, co-host of the HGTV series My House is Your House.
Thanks, Donna.
Our guest today is Danny Gokey. In 2008, he became a household name to millions of American Idol fans.
A lot of people with what this man's been through would have given up, but this guy did not do it, and God honored him for it. Look where his life is today.
He's probably one of the most memorable stars from American Idol.
Yep, because he had a story. He didn't just come with a great voice. He came with a story. I know I was rooting for him.
I was going to say he's going to let his hair down, but he has none.
He doesn't
Very
anymore.
little,
He shaved
right.
it off.
By the way, he didn't win American Idol, did he?
He did not win American Idol, but a lot of people who didn't win went on to have pretty stellar careers, and he's one of them.
So let's listen to my interview with Danny Gokey. Hey, buddy, how you doing?
Man, I cannot complain. I'm doing really, really great. A lot of great things are brewing and happening at this time. And so I feel like I'm just on a ride, and I'm just, hey, I get to be a part of this ride that God has, orchestrated for me.
What a ride it has been. You two have number 4 on the way.
Number 4. And let me tell you.
Now,
yeah.
I remember I went to lunch with you several years ago. I think that was you had number 1 with you.
I think, was it number 1?
Yes.
Dude, we've come a long way. I didn't think we'd ever have 4, but it's interesting how
And the fun has just begun.
Oh man. And the sleep it's slowly just, what is sleep again? I hear it's really nice.
Now, who really gets up in the middle of the night?
Depends on who elbows each other the hardest in bed, right? You get up. No, you get up. My wife is really good at getting up. She does it the most. I will say that. That is, she's the one who does it the most. And I'm trying to learn how to be more helpful. Mm-hmm. But, I get kind of spoiled sometimes. But she definitely will make me get up at times. And so
Right.
I'm learning to bite the bullet. I'm trying to be the good dad, the sacrificial dad. I'm starting to realize that love is not about, what's being done for you, but doing it for others. You know what I mean?
Yeah. My kids are now 22 and 19. And all I can tell you is that you wake up and they're all going to be in college.
I know. I was thinking about that yesterday, and I was like, man, my daughter, I have one daughter, and I have now, I got 2 boys and another boy on the way. So I'm going to have 3 boys and 1 daughter. So especially with the daughter, I'm really trying to she's only that small for that moment, all of them are that way, but really trying to really be intentional and conversational and doing what they like to do, build the Legos that my son loves to do, playing the playground with them. They love going to the YMCA, and so doing all these activities is really crucial right now.
How do you really balance the life, especially you're on the road so much? I mean, how many dates have you been on the road this year?
Oh my goodness. In this past spring, I hit about 75 cities. I was gone so much.
Do you just wake up and try to figure out where you are? I mean, do you lose track?
That's the funny thing, because it's, really, you tend to forget where you're at. And so one of my biggest fears is literally is people's names. And so naming someone who I've met and I'm confused about their name. And then also cities. I've messed up saying cities. So right now, the notorious city that I mess up all the time is Ontario, California, with Ontario, Canada. To the point where I was on this tour in this arena, and there's this big arena over in Ontario, Canada. I was like, "What's up, Ontario, Canada?" And literally, boo! I was like, "Whoa, sorry." And it's funny because I rehearsed it. It was California. Then I got on stage and blew it. So, yeah.
Well, the reason I wear dashikis.
Okay.
You'll never forget me.
I won't. You're right. That's absolutely right.
Hey, I always tell people I live too much of my life in black and white. It's a lot more fun than living in living color.
Agreed. I'm kind of that guy too. Get me out the box.
Yeah, out of the box.
Why color in the lines when there's a whole free space outside of it?
Have you always been a outside of the box kind of guy?
No.
What got you to get there? First of all, what were you like before?
Pretty rigid. I think growing up in a very strict, home, Christian home, it wasn't there's so many different interpretations of the Bible, right? And so you have, which has caused all these different divisions of religion. And in the sense of Christianity, I mean, there's how many different denominations. So, being a kid, I think one of the things younger, I allowed fear in. And so fear would kind of set me back. But as I started getting to know who God was and who God wanted me to be, fear wasn't so much of an issue anymore. When you take the limits off and you find out that God he's unlimited, limitless, so to say, you just start realizing there's a whole frontier. And so the scriptures begin to reveal to me about who this God was, getting to know him personally, learning. I think the wilderness experience in my early 20s was what really opened me up to understand, wow. I mean, I was pretty rigid and didn't have much of a plan for my life until I went to this church in Milwaukee, Wisconsin called Faith Builders. Pastor Pruitt, and he's still a spiritual father to me to this day. We talk all the time. But man, he really opened up the scriptures to me that there is a promised land for each believer, that there is a destiny written out before we got to this earth, and playing it safe is not how you're going to get there. Being comfortable is actually, you got to get out of your comfort zone to live the full life, the life that Jesus promised. And so it started there, and I still can be rigid at times, and I'm still kind of breaking some of those things that were planted in me at a young age. But I think some of it's good, and some of it you got to let go.
I have this conversation all the time with friends who say, "Oh my gosh, the world's coming to an end because of this and that," and it's the end of Christianity, it's the end of our significance. And I go, wait a minute. I'm divorced. I remember back in the day, man, you were shunned.
That was taboo.
You were shunned, right?
Yeah.
Now you drive up and down Franklin, and every church in America, at least in the South here, has divorce care here.
Ministry, yeah.
So it's a magnet to get people going through that thing in their life into the church. But we have lived through this time and time again, where you got this rigid thing. Right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it, to be honest with you, is I think a lot of money is raised on the backs of these controversies.
Yeah. There's this balanced life that we're supposed to live, right? And Jesus, that's the life he's talking about. That's the abundant life. But then you have these radical shifts. You have people like me who are raised in such a strict background at times. Not intentionally. It's, people were trying to understand the scriptures and teach them the best they could, who I was taught under. But then you have this whole then you get out of that. Think about like my sisters, man. They were under that, and my brother too. When they turned 18, I mean, they went complete opposite. Basically. Yeah. And one of my sisters has a huge testimony, a follower of Christ, but man, she was a stripper for years. I mean, and hey, we got to talk about this stuff, and she follows the Lord complete, but man, she went through that phase of not feeling accepted, not feeling loved, because she went under this thing of rules and regulations. But then there's this paradigm shift where it's like, now there is no rules and now there is no regulations. And when we learn that actually, what is love? And we're not supposed to live by the law, but the law points to love. You know what I mean? The essence of the law of scripture was to point to what love looks like, but we can never have love outside of this relationship with Christ. And so when you look at love, it's almost like you point back to the law and say, well, love wouldn't do X, Y, and Z. And I think that's where we got to find this balance. We're broken people finding redemption in Christ. We're not redeemed by our good deeds, but by he who is king. And that's what we have to remember. And when we walk into that redemption, we open up our hearts to this love law that begins to help us treat ourselves and treat others. So I feel like we need to come back to that point right now, because these extremes, it seems like we're missing the love ingredient, right? We're missing that because when we're trying to follow law, we don't love ourselves, we don't love God, then we would try to live super lavishly. We're not loving ourselves, we're not loving God either. So it's like, God, teach us what love is so that we can live a life that's pleasing to you and pleasing to other people, because that's what we're here for.
So there's somebody out there right now listening to this, and they're going, man, you know what? I just feel so lost, so unloved. I just can't get it together. There's no way that I'll ever be accepted. What would you say to them?
Usually that's generated by mistakes that begin to drum up feelings, or words that were spoken over them that drum up feelings. One of the safest things you can do in those moments when you feel that way is to really begin to disconnect from that feeling. Let's not ignore it, but let's begin to drive to the truth of the situation. One of the things that I would say is get other people's advice. I remember going to church and counseling was this thing. Like, you don't do counseling. If you can't solve it at the altar, get out of it. I'm telling people, run to counseling or run to a pastor, run to someone who can take a better look at your life. You can tell them your story and they can look at it with a whole new set of eyes that can give you a different perspective. A lot of times we get so lost in the mistakes, the failures of ourselves that we can't even see, right from left and left from right, up from down. You know what I mean? So what I would say is like, get a different perspective of your life. Go to the Bible and see what God says about you, and let that begin to renew yourself. What does the Bible say? Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Literally, that talks about, the word there is metamorphosis, which says it's going from a caterpillar to a butterfly. As long as there's breath in your lungs, as long as there's blood in your veins, you have another chance. Go and live life to the fullest. We live under a lot of lies, don't we? And these lies that we've allowed power over our lives become jail cells, and we're the ones holding the keys and won't let ourselves out.
You look back over the last few years and you see all the changes that have occurred in the music business.
Oh, man.
The media business. I mean, it's across the board. I mean, one reason I wear a dashiki, by the way, is because it reminds me that I've got to be a chameleon. Because if you're not a chameleon in today's world, you're a dinosaur. If you can't change that color like that, I mean, if you can't like go from green to purple to red in like milliseconds, you walk through the record companies here in Nashville.
Oh, man.
They have all this real estate.
Yep.
It's cubicle after cubicle, they're all empty.
Oh, yeah. I was dropped from a record label. My first record deal, Sony, back in 2011. The changes were just so massive that it was unsustainable, the amounts of money that were being spent. But I think it's like you said, you had an adaptability, the chameleon. I said it right here from the beginning. Being comfortable where you are can be the death of a career, the death of a marriage, the death of and I mean, it's obviously when I say the death, or let's just say better word, the ending. So we must continue to get out the comfort zone, be pliable, moldable. Think about that. He's the potter, we're the clay. Things change all the time. So we better be open to it. Now, we don't have to change character. We don't have to change things, but we need to change the way we think. It's funny. Like, no one ever thought, like, think about it. Walmart was that major store. They nailed the market with accessibility. Amazon came in there and just literally, the new Walmart is Amazon. You know what I mean? The new record store is Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube. Dude, there are record studios, not just record company, studios, massive studios that are just empty. I record all my albums in producers' homes. My sound guy, my sound engineer, great engineer, he was telling me in his heyday, he was making $1,000 a day mixing records. And then one moment it changed, and he's working for me now, but he had to go to painting houses, making $15 an hour. And this is where I think wisdom comes in. And just like you said, wisdom means that this whole world is not going to change for you, but you need to change. A lot of us wait for God, you need to change, world, you need to change, husband, wife, you need to change. And honestly, it's you, me, we need to change.
How have you seen the music business for you personally change over those years? What has been the one thing that you can count on?
One thing I can count on, and this might be maybe a different kind of answer, is I can count on the uniqueness that God has put into me. And this applies to everyone. What I have to offer in music and the message that God has developed in me, nobody else can offer it. God has the ultimate plan for your life. I heard someone say this, the richest resources are grave sites, where people were born an original, yet they died a copycat, because they, instead of putting their eyes on God, who God created them to be, they followed the world's systems and followed other people. It's interesting when you see singers, you can see sometimes singers mimic other singers. And my biggest advice to singers, like, be you. Find your voice. And not only just find your voice, find your lyric, because there can never be another one of you. So I think that's key. It's key to that, seeing who you are, because there's always a value to that. And if you find that, no matter how old you are, we live in this world where they say you got to be a certain, especially in this music world, pop stars, you got to be 18 or younger, or when you hit your 20s, you're starting to get old, and gosh, when you're 30s, forget about it. You are a senile, you're good for nothing. And that's just such a wrong mentality. And what lasts beyond that is the uniqueness of what you offer and not deviating from that. Now, what can I not depend on anymore? I can't depend on other people's opinions of me and other people what they think I should be. And I hope listeners get that. Yeah, take advice, but don't be what someone else thinks you should be.
Tell me about your new songs. First of all, what do you do to get inspired after you've done it time and time again? Is this some lightning bolt that hits you in the shower and you go, oh my gosh, I can't believe I've never written that song. I can't believe I've never performed that song. I mean, what is it that sparks an idea in you?
Oh man. So here's the first thing I do, especially with this record. I've done with every record, but the very first thing I do is I say, God, you created music, you created lyrics. And here's why I say that, because I'm like, man, how do I do this again? You start questioning yourself. I'm not good enough to do this again. This was hard enough to do the last couple records. But then again, I'm like, wait, I serve a God who's limitless in ideas, limitless. There's a scripture verse in Proverbs that says, wisdom will give you the ability to create witty inventions. I can't remember where it is, but it's in Proverbs. I think Proverbs 8. And I know
does it actually use the word witty?
Yeah, so there's I think it's King James or New King James that says it. There is a version. So there's other versions that don't say that, but it does say witty inventions. So we tap into this wisdom realm and we find out that God, the creator of music. And so here's what I say, God, I need heavenly melodies, heavenly lyrics. And God, I know that you call me to make music, not just for the church, but music for the world, for the future church, for people who need hope. And that's where I start. And then I believe it. I wish I got the lightning bolt. I don't get that. But all of a sudden, it's funny. When you come with this expectation, you release faith. Faith is, you're walking it out now. You have a hope that you're going to get it. And so you begin to walk towards that hope. I walk into the studios, and before I get there, I say, God, you write the song with us. I make my hands, my vocal cords available to you. And you'd be surprised. Like we have just for one instance, like I have a song on my record called Tell Somebody. I did it as a duet with Mandisa. It's based off my wife's testimony. My wife was raised in Miami. She's Hispanic. She lived a life without Jesus because her parents never told her about Jesus. We did this event. We were asked to do this event where she was to share her testimony and I was to do music. And this event was about evangelizing, people who've heard about Jesus or don't have a relationship with God. And she shares her testimony. And out of that testimony, Ed Cash, one of the biggest worship writers, calls me the next day and is like, we need to write a song about that. God has given me lyrics. He's downloading lyrics to me. He sends me these lyrics. But her story was that no one ever invited her to church. Her parents were atheists, still atheists, don't follow the Lord. So she had to figure out life on her own. Finally, she's in church. Someone invites her in Miami to church. And they say, the preacher literally in his altar call says, even if you're going to the club tonight, you need to, you can give your life to Jesus. She looks at her friend. She's like, we're going to the club tonight. She raised her hand. She gives her life to Jesus. She goes to the club. But when she finds out what she has, she keeps going back to church. She was really upset at people who never told her. She's like, how could you call yourself a Christian, yet you never shared this message with me? And so Tell Somebody was birthed out of that, just me praying. And then a man who was there that night, Ed Cash, a huge worship writer. He's probably written every song you sing in church. Not all of them, but most of them. And he literally wakes up next morning with a download of lyrics. We have another song called Wanted. One of the writer's personal testimony of where something really negative happened in his life. Something that every time his mind went back there, it would take him such a dark place into depression. And one day he's with this prayer group, a bunch of guys, and he's like, man, guys, I don't know what to do. This thing that happened when I was younger, it messed me up so bad. How do I get over this? And one of the guys there, let's pray about this. And the guy leads him through this prayer. And this guy says, Jess, I want you to close your eyes and I want you to go back to that dark place. And I want you to ask Jesus, where were you when this happened? And when Jess did that, it's nothing super spiritual, but you can ask God these questions. He has answers. He speaks. He said he saw himself in that room and he asked God, where were you? And he saw Jesus in that room. And he said, Jesus walked up to him and said, I was there when it happened. I saw you lost your heart, but I have your heart and I'm giving it back to you. We penned this beautiful song called Wanted from there. I mean, it's helping people left and right. People who've walked the song haven't seen it yet. I was in a disappointed season and I had to go remind myself, who is this God that we serve? Because, when you're walking through disappointment, let's just talk about this for a moment because there's people listening now who are disappointed. We tend to think that we know everything and what was the best answer to this prayer, and we think that we have this omniscience. Let me just remind people, God has walked every path. He's omniscient, which means he knows everything. He's seen your life, and he's seen every path you could have taken, every prayer you could have prayed, and he answers. And the prayer that you're praying right now, you think you want this, but God says, no, trust me, because I need to give you this because you want that. This is what you really want. We have to remind ourselves he's doing more than we can see. This is where these songs were birthed on this album. And it's making a huge impact. And I got to thank everyone, first of all, who are listening. Thank you for making the album a number one on Billboard Christian charts. I mean, it's responding, and it's because of the listeners today. But I think it's because when we say what God says, he makes a way for his message. And that's my achievement. So to answer your question, I want to say what he says because he makes a way for his word.
That's good. That's powerful. I know you recently bought a new place.
Yeah.
With lots of land.
Lots of land.
Do you have any chickens and cows or?
Working on it. My wife literally is trying to get a chicken, because we go through so many eggs, get a chicken coop built. And I'm trying to actually buy my neighbor's property, believe it or not, who has cows. And he's selling the whole business. And so.
Are the cows included?
They're included. All the equipment. But yeah,
I don't see you milking. These aren't milk cows, right?
No, they're beef cows.
Beef, okay.
Yeah, I don't see me milking them either. Although, hey, my kids drink milk like it's going out of style. Goodness. Organic milk is like $6 a gallon. I could use a couple milk cows, I think.
You have family that lives with you.
I do.
What's that like?
I love it.
Now, are we talking about your parents?
My wife's parents.
Your wife's parents, who are atheists?
Yes. And so her mom has opened up to it. So we pray for her parents all the time. He's coming to Jesus. He's for me and my house. And I declare that he's serving the Lord. And so I think something happened when he was younger. He's a stoic Peruvian man. They only speak Spanish. So, I speak Spanish.
Right.
My kids speak Spanish. We have to.
Yeah. So when you do like Thanksgiving and you're doing the family prayers and everything, do they play along?
Oh yeah, I make them pray. Oh yeah, we're going out to dinner tonight, and I will say a blessing. I think one of the keys that I'm learning, especially in our world, is we don't necessarily need to talk about Jesus as much. We just need to let our light shine.
Yeah,
and reveal who he is.
Right.
I think it's more powerful than a word.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my view with him. But I do make him pray, and he does pray. Yeah. We're working on him. He's coming to Jesus.
Well, good. That's good stuff. What kind of expansion are you guys thinking about? 8, 9 kids? What? I mean, this isn't. I didn't hear you say this is the last one.
Well, according to my wife, it is the last one. Who knows what will happen? Maybe 5 years down the road, or I do want to adopt. I look at my property that God gave me. So earlier we were talking about answered prayers, disappointments, and I literally had a whole nother plan in place for the house we were going to live in. And I love that God shut the door to that one. Literally, the architect I was working with doing an addition to my house that I had in another part of Nashville, he just went MIA, and literally God opened this door. And a realtor called my realtor, and she was like, hey, I'm buying a house out of foreclosure, and I was praying, and the Lord told me this house doesn't belong to me, it belongs to the Gokeys. There's so much more to this story I can share. It just wasn't that confirmation. God, because you got to be careful when someone says the God says thing.
Right.
But man, let me tell you this, God made it very clear through confirmation after confirmation that this was the house for us. So I look at this property as a piece of land like Bethel, like Jacob in the Bible. He had this encounter with God in a dream, and he said, man, God was here and I didn't even know it. That's kind of the house we live in. So I'm open to this property being a ministry type of property. If I buy my neighbor's land, which I will buy it, I'm just going to say that right now, because there's a horse stable on his property, and then I want to get horses. So there's a few things. There's another hay barn, and maybe I'll turn it into a little ministry center. I don't know. Sky's the limit.
Well, my friend, it's been great having you here. This has been fun, being as always.
Love what you guys do, and thank you for just spreading the hope. People need this. We need it in these dark times. It's just, this is a really bright thing that's shining like a lighthouse.
Thank you again. Wow, you wind that guy up, man. He's on fire, isn't he?
He's an energizer bunny.
I do think that we have to disclose here that you once lived with Danny Gokey and his wife.
Okay.
Right?
No, I never lived with Danny and Leasette. I lived in their bed and breakfast in Brentwood. I just kind of oversaw it for them for about 6 months until they sold it, I was helping them out.
You were like the innkeeper.
I was like the innkeeper who put out muffins and donuts and bagels and cream cheese. No, I lived there as a favor to them, but it also helped me out because we were both in a transition, all of us, of where we were going to live next. So it was a really nice blessing for me and for them. Great people.
Wow, you
Beautiful
were like
home.
you made biscuits. And...
I didn't make them. I bought them. Okay, let's get that straight.
And from there, you got your TV gig on HGTV.
Well, not from there. I was in the midst of working the show, of doing the series when I lived there, or getting it ready.
That show is now on HGTV.
That's right. My house is your house.
You do this with your daughter. And do you expect to become, one of those iconic HGTV stars from this thing? You know, how they have these people that go on and become big deals. And
I'm already a big deal, David.
From doing this show.
From doing this show and working with you. I have no idea what's going to happen, but it's been fun. It's been a great time with my daughter. We're giving some really good information on the show, and people are enjoying it. So we'll see what happens.
Well, I think it's really cool. You can see how God connects the dots. First, you're an innkeeper for Danny Gokey. Then now you're an HGTV star. I'm seeing the pattern take place here. It's pretty cool.
I did move a few pieces of furniture around at their place. Just made it look a little bit better.
So here we are. We're in the top 10 on iHeartRadio with this thing. It's unbelievable how it's taken off. We're now on iHeartRadio. We're on Spotify. We're on
Google, Apple, wherever you find your podcast. You can help others find this podcast by leaving a 5-star rating and a review in that same app. And let us know if you have some ideas to help us improve the show. Or maybe you know a contagious influencer that you think should be featured. And who knows, we might have them on an upcoming episode.
There's nothing better than reading a 5-star rating on
nothing
our site.
Better. And there's nothing worse than reading a 1. So
we have no 1s.
Well, we don't want them either.
Or
so
you erased them, didn't you?
If you if you hate the show, do not leave a review. Just go listen to another one.
We'll see you next time when Keep the Faith presents Contagious Influencers of America.